Welcome to Summon the Heroes, Great American Documents. It's been my privilege over the last 7 or 8 years to have done almost 50 of the Summon the Heroes themes at my church, in front of audiences, in our services, as well as in my Bible class. Taken a little bit of vacation, but now I'm back at it. And so watch ahead in the days to come, and there will be more Summon the Heroes and many different aspects, American icons, and then, of course, great leaders and great people that have done heroic things. I can think of nothing more appropriate, though, today than to start with the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was signed July 4th, 1776, by the congressional representatives of the 13 colonies of colonial America. They did not all sign them that day, but the signing began. They had to just gather over the weeks. There were 56 delegates to the Continental Congress who signed it, and the Declaration of Independence is our nation's birth certificate. It states that the authority to govern belongs to the people rather than to kings, that all people are created equal and have rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration is divided into 3 basic parts. There is a short introduction. John Adams wrote that. Or contributed to that, I should say. Then there is a long list of grievances to the king and to Great Britain. And then there's finally the formal Declaration of Independence for separation from England. John Adams wrote the customary preamble, the first part, which stated that the King George III had rejected reconciliation and was hiring foreign mercenaries to use against the American colonists. We know this to be true because the German Hessians fought George Washington after he crossed the Delaware. The American colonies had been at war with Great Britain for over a year when the document was signed. The most famous extract from the Declaration of Independence is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The Revolutionary War began on April 19th in 1775. It ended September 3rd, 1783. It lasted 8 years and 137 days, almost 8 1/3 years. The Stamp Act of 1765, imposed by Parliament of Great Britain, was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. Pastors started preaching about freedom, and colonists started talking about that, and it picked up steam. Britain did not help the cause by levying a tea tax on tea coming in to the United States, on tea that the Americans would drink, but not the British. And so hence the Boston Tea Party, and then the revolution was really gaining some steam and got underway. Around 20% of the American population during the American Revolutionary War were British loyalists. There was a committee of 5 appointed by the Second Continental Congress that drafted what became known as America's Declaration of Independence. Now, all of these had input, and of course Thomas Jefferson was the writer and the main driver of all of it. The members of the Committee of Five were Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, and Benjamin Franklin. Robert Livingston did not sign the final copy. He thought America should wait a bit longer. On July 4th, 1776, the wording of the Declaration of Independence was approved and sent to the printer for publication. The printer, John Dunlap, was asked to make about 200 copies to be distributed throughout the colonies. There are only 26 Dunlap broadsides have survived and are around today. And they're called the broadsides. That's a broadside printer that is there. And of course, Dunlap was the printer. The signers of the Declaration of Independence did not all sign on the same day. John Hancock was actually the first man to sign the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. The other signatures were added on various dates, the last being Matthew Thornton from New Hampshire, who signed on November 4th, 1776. Not one of the men who signed the Declaration of Independence was born in America. 9 of the men who signed the Declaration of Independence died before the American Revolution ended in 1783. The youngest signers were Thomas Lynch, Jr. and Edward Rutledge. They were 26 years of age. The oldest one was Ben Franklin, and he was age 70. The first public reading of the Declaration took place on July 8th, 4 days after the publication of it, in 1776 in Philadelphia. Signing the Declaration of Independence was extremely dangerous. It was an act of treason, punishable by death. Congress initially kept the names of the men who signed the document secret until 1777 to protect them from charges of treason. 2 future presidents signed, John Adams II and Thomas Jefferson III. The original sheet of parchment measured about 24¼ by 29¼ inches. In 1776, when the Declaration was signed, the population of America was estimated to have been right around 2.5 million people. The Declaration has only left the capital twice. The first time was when the British attacked Washington during the War of 1812. Dolly Madison was responsible for, while the city was burning, of pulling these documents and the picture of Washington and getting them out, rescuing them, getting them out of town so that they might be saved. The second time was during World War II, from late 1941 to the fall of 44, when it was stored at Fort Knox. Fort Knox was a tank fort. There was a battalion of tanks there. And this is an actual picture of many of them, and they surrounded the fort. Of course, our gold was kept there, but our national treasure was too. Here's Fort Knox today, and of course the tank battalion with the tank on top. The movie National Treasure, starring Nicolas Cage, is based on actually secret writing on the back of the Declaration. There was not a whole bunch of what you were looking at was not part of the deal. It's not on the back of the Declaration. But one thing was, and it was a filing reference, and it says, quote, original Declaration of Independence dated 4th July, 1776. No one really knows where that came from and who wrote that. Independence Hall was originally called the Pennsylvania State House, but was changed after the signing when it became Independence Hall. The Liberty Bell sounded from the Tower of Independence Hall on July 8th, 1776, summoning the citizens to gather for the first public reading. And that was read by Colonel John Nixon. And who were the signers and their occupations of our Declaration? Well, we know there are 24 lawyers, 11 were merchants, 9 were farmers, and at least one was a preacher. And where did Christianity and the Bible and the Lord come into the Declaration? Of the 59 signers, or 57 signers, 49 were professing Christians. 25 went to divinity schools, and all 57 spoke of the need, and they read their Bible on a daily basis, and the need of having the Bible in our culture and in our society. According to legend, Betsy Ross sewed the first American flag in May or June in 1776, being commissioned by the Congressional Committee. The average age of the signers was 45. During the Revolutionary War, 4 signers were captured by the British: George Walton, Thomas Hayward Jr., Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge. But all 4 of them were released. Every 4th of July, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia is tapped, not rung, 13 times in honor of the original 13 colonies. A one-gun salute for each state in the United States, called the, quote, salute to the Union, unquote, is fired at noon on Independence Day by any capable military base. One U.S. President, Calvin Coolidge, was born on July 4th. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on Independence Day, July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 days or 50 years after the first Independence Day. Congress declared July 4th a federal holiday in 1941. The most famous version of the Declaration of Independence is displayed at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and it is heavily protected in many ways. And now, I believe it fitting, as I come close to wrapping up everything, that these are the signers of the Declaration of Independence, that I think we should hear their names and understand it cost these men basically everything. As I've studied history on some of them, many of them, not just George Washington, but many of them emptied their bank accounts, gave silver for food for the troops, sold their businesses or lost it during the Revolution. And they gave everything. And so as you look around, we are the product of their sacrifice. From Massachusetts, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Paine, Elbridge Gerry. From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton. North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll. Virginia, George Wyeth, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. Delaware, Cesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean. New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple, Matthew Thornton. Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery. And Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott. If you were to go to Walt Disney World in Orlando, go to Epcot, and go to the back of the park to the American Adventure. There is a very, very patriotic presentation upstairs, but go early enough to enjoy the Voices of Liberty singers, and just look around the hall at the pictures and things that are up on the wall and in the display room. But in the program, it begins with our quote hosts, Benjamin Franklin and Mark Twain. They didn't live at the same time, but they have made them our hosts. And Benjamin Franklin opens with this statement, which is a quote from John Steinbeck. And I feel it very appropriate to close this presentation with this quote. America did not exist. 4 centuries of work, bloodshed, loneliness, and fear created this land. We built America, and the process made us Americans, a new breed, rooted in all races, stained and tinted with all colors. Then, in a little time, we became more alike than we were different. In society, not great, but fitted by our very thoughts for greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, the Declaration of Independence. And I am Dick Baker. I'm the creator of some of the heroes, and all of these, there will be shorts down the road. And so check back every now and then. Here's where I can be written to. And I appreciate that you were watching today. God bless you. Here's some of my help. And in today's culture, we need to summon our heroes up. We need not forget them. We need to remember what made America great is great Americans. God bless you, and have a great patriotic day.